Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and what's next. It's a show that asks questions and peels back the layers of our average everyday experience and goes beyond scratching the surface. We interview people doing incredible things who are making a difference around the globe. Join me as we listen in and get one step closer to understanding that big ideas shared create collaboration. Collaboration can inspire community, and communities create social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. So this interview was with Amos Gitai, and we spoke about his film Rabin, The Last Day, and it's about Prime Minister Rabin's assassination in Israel. I think it's coming up on the 20th anniversary of that, and the film's going to be released in Israel on that day, kind of as a way of, I guess, honoring him, but also to, I would imagine Amos would say, to create a little bit more conversation. It's a really interesting film from a filmmaking perspective, mixing documentary, sort of newsreel-like footage with narrative filmmaking, and it makes for a pretty interesting study. I mean, this whole idea of fact and fiction. And so this is a film about division. It's a film about violence. It's a film about fighting back and being subversive, and it's a film about the truth, really, it seems to me. So listen in, try to catch this film if you can. Again, Rabin, The Last Day, Amos Gitai. Well, welcome to Face to Face. We are joined by another very special guest here, another director who just got into Toronto last night, actually, here for the 40th anniversary of the Toronto International Film Festival. Amos Gitai is here and joining us today, and we're here to talk about his film Rabin, The Last Day. Thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure.
So, let's dispose with the pleasantries. We don't need to talk about, how the film festival is feeling for you, or I'm happy to talk about that too. But I really want to get to some of what you're trying to say with this film. I mean, it's pretty in your face, I would say. It's a gripping film. The performances are stellar, by the way. They really are astounding. Documentary drama. Tell me about that line, and ethically, and how you tell the story.
It's a fiction film based on facts, and obviously we include also elements of the archive. I would say that this film was done by me as a citizen more than a filmmaker, because I felt that this year we will mark 20 years to the killing of Rabin, Yitzhak Rabin, the Prime Minister of Israel, who was shot by extreme right-wing Israeli. And I think that we are still in the aftermath of this act. So it's even, doing this film, the powers that militated to I don't know if to kill, but to weaken the government of Rabin are getting stronger and stronger. And as an Israeli citizen who loves this country, I felt that I have to bring back the memory of Rabin, who in my mind was an Israeli patriot, but in a good sense. The fact that the right wing always confiscate the word patriotism to them is a mistake. I think that Rabin is a clear case that he believed that in order to stabilize the existence of Israel in the Middle East, you need to find ways into inroads into the Arab world, especially to try to find another modus vivendi with the Palestinians. So I think he was a courageous guy, and his killing, because the film is not about the personality of Rabin, it's really about his assassination.
What's interesting to me is it's really difficult to tell when I'm watching documentary footage, because I'm assuming there's documentary footage, there's actual newsreel footage, and some of the actual film itself.
Yeah.
It's that blurring of the line between what maybe actually happened and like you say, your citizen-like interpretation of it is really interesting.
Thank you.
Is that would you say that that's Are you going more for a philosophical sort of interpretation with respect to that from a technical perspective? In other words, do you want people to question what's real in this case because the facts were so skewed?
It's not. I mean, I don't want them to enter philosophical questions. What is real? I want them to enter a question. What is wrong? And I think that a lot went wrong, and we are, as I said, we have another Prime Minister who was elected right after the assassination of Rabin, that with kind of one brief interval basically is running the place for the last 20 years with the Barak and some period Sharon. So in a way, the killing of this individual, Yitzhak Rabin, really destabilized completely the complete way of thinking that we can actually find ways, inroads into the Middle East.
Why is it that there seems to be such a group of people, and I think I think your film is a global statement too, frankly, on reconciliation, forgiveness, peace, dialogue, all of these things. Why do you think, as a citizen, as a filmmaker, as an architect, as you just mentioned to me about your past, why is it so hard to get there? Like, what, the anger, the hatred?
Well, I think that it's a very complicated conflict, and but we still have to try. I mean, I think that there are no, each side of this conflict is completely ethnocentric and think that all the truth is in one side. I think that the truth is in no side, and there is no angelism, there is no angelic figures.
There's no angelism, nice, yeah.
I think they are both, in different degrees, responsible for the fact that we are stuck. And that there is really at this stage, I don't see a kind of somebody injecting energy in mobilizing into a much more reconciliatory tones. And so I think that we can look with sadness into the Rabin legacy. I chose, in a way, not to incarnate Rabin by an actor. So, as you said, when Rabin is on stage, it's an archive element. I think that similarly to the films which were done after the killing of Kennedy, these kind of historical figures had a very strong aura, presence. So it would be wrong to fictionalize them. So when Rabin or other political figure comes on stage, it's an archive from the period.
Do you think what he stood for, the peace accords, his approach, his desire for change, do you think that that's lessening in your country? Do you think it's growing? Is there an undercurrent of that kind of a tone with respect to some of the issues, or is it being pushed aside?
I think it's pushed aside. I think that also let's remember that Rabin was killed by an Israeli right-wing guy, but he was killed also in the period that the ultra-nationalist Palestinians, fundamentalists and ultra-nationalists put the maximum bombs in the Israeli civil centers. So by that they also helped to fragilize the status of the Rabin government. So this coalition of the people who don't want any peace in the region, which exists on both sides, is still ruling.
How can you not want peace? I mean, as a father, I don't get it.
Ask the Europeans. I mean, they have killed. In a way, the Middle East is relatively modest to the savagery of these very enlightened Europeans.
Do you know the philosopher Levinas, Emmanuel Levinas?
Sure.
So we killed 100 million people in the 20th century.
Yeah.
All religion, all philosophy has failed. Yeah. Now what do we do, right?
Yeah.
And I bring this up in my interviews all the time with different people. I see your face, I have to say, invoke the Torah and say, thou shalt not kill.
Yeah.
And then we can start talking about humanity.
Of course. But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, you look at this enlightened European with Mozart and Beethoven and Goethe and great painters and so on, and they savaged Europe not even 100 years ago. So I think that it's a complicated conflict to reconcile, but I think the good thing, to go back to Rabin, is that there is an effort to reconcile it. There is an effort to take an active position in order to find a solution. Also, I like a lot what he says towards the end of the film when he speaks about Gaza. So he speaks about the fact that if Israel will withdraw unilaterally, it will create chaos, and the worst forces will take over, which really happened 10 years after his killing. And he said, if you withdraw, you have to make sure that there is water, electricity. So I think that in a way, peace, like any relationship, the other should exist. If you cannot have human relations unilaterally, and you cannot have peace unilaterally. You have to involve the other.
And the other exists, in your mind, through providing the basic necessities of life for so many people.
Taking the others' consideration.
Got to at least start there.
Considerations.
I love what you say about an active passion towards change. I mean, can't just sit idly by, right? You can't take a back seat.
Absolutely. And I think in that sense he was unique, Rabin. So I think the entire Middle East missed a great opportunity, and we are in the aftermath of this lost opportunity.
I know I interviewed Denai Elan, whose film P.S. Jerusalem. I don't know if you saw it in the TIFF catalog, but a very good film, very interesting documentary. And I think I asked her a similar question about the hatred, about the inability to reconcile.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us in the West or the global North, we think about the Middle East and say, wow, that's a confusing mess. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And we miss out these opportunities for insights and for growth because it seems like it's such a complicated thing.
Yeah.
Is it really about revenge? On some level, are we just talking about hatred of the other? And
I think
revenge?
that there are some that are, like I said, angelism. There is all sort of juxtaposition of religion into politics. And obviously it's a contradiction, because religion it's an idea of absolutely. I mean, the other don't exist. Every religion thinks that it's the center of the world, And politics is different. Politics is a pragmatic way of taking into account the different forces. So I think when you inject religion into a conflict, it's bad news.
The police officer in one of the early scenes in the film talking about, I guess, some of the layers that have been peeled back about terrorist elements and so on in Israeli culture says to one of the reporters, quote, "I can't answer political questions," close quote. And I kind of laughed out loud.
Yeah.
And I thought, isn't that a simple metaphor for the system?
Sure, of course.
Oh, we don't want to talk about it.
Sure.
Let's just sweep it under the carpet.
Sure.
And do you think, is that a part of Israeli culture in a sense, or are people talking about these issues?
No, I think that it's rather, it's not a monolithic society, and you have a lot of discussion going on. The question is which current will win, and right now, in my mind, it's not the good guys.
As a dad, as a father with a 7 and a 10-year-old, I'm constantly asking the questions about how am I going to influence my children, for better and for worse. I joke with people and I say my kids will be screwed up. The term, as far as my wife and I are concerned, is how much, right? What are we going to offer them?
Not sure. I have also 2 kids and they're not screwed up. I think you stand a good chance of having sensitive kids.
Well, I hope so too, but I guess my point is that...
But it is a project not less important than making
correct.
films. Bringing good people into the world is a...
Yeah, and making, it's not, like you say, this is a complicated thing. Raising a child is a complicated thing. We aren't going to raise good and bad kids, and yet, if we're not interested, like the police officer, in talking about political issues or sexual issues or ideological issues, we risk raising kids, teaching kids to not care, it seems to me, on some level, or just to kind of parrot what other people are saying, which is fundamentally so dangerous, which allows these things to exist.
Of course. Sure.
How will your film be received at home, or how has it been received?
No, it was not shown yet. We are releasing it on the day of the killing of Rabin, 4th of November this year to 2015, it was shot on the 4th of November 1995, so 20 years day by day, in the big Philharmonic auditorium. It's 2,500 seats, and about
Wow.
200 meters from where he was shot.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I'm sure it will make me friends and others which are not, but that's fine.
And has there been any kind of sense with people that you know that have actually maybe seen it or have heard about the project?
Yeah, I'm sure they're building up. Both camps are aligning. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Do you expect protests, that kind of things? Or those kinds of things?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't want to predict, but I think that it's a very sensitive issue.
There's a quote here that I have from one of the, I guess, investigators in the commission, who you seem to really be taking a very kind of almost measured attack against, in a way, or a measured critique,
Yeah.
I would say, because it's so, the film plays on such a level, sort of even keel.
Yeah.
But one of them says to the woman, who's one of the women lawyers, I believe, says, "I don't understand the connection between the Geneva Convention and his assassination.
Yeah.
Like, unpack this for me."
Yeah.
Is that? Would you say your film sort of is acting as a metaphor for that kind of bureaucratic ignorance,
I
almost?
think so. I don't know if it's bureaucratic. The commission was limited in the mandate of investigation. So by the fact that we put these scenes in which they overrule certain questions, we establish also what are the questions. Conceptually understand what is the procedure that we do as a film. In a way, the film itself is the investigation committee which never happened.
Mm. You've several moments in the film you can't but think about kind of a radical right-wing like conspiracy comes out in the film and some of the dialogue. Is that and certainly online as well, a little bit of research that I did.
Yeah.
I'm a little suspicious myself of conspiracy theories,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
where do you sit on that? I mean,
I'm also suspicious. I think that that it was written on the wall that he may be killed, and I don't think there is a conspiracy. I think that you could have seen the forces, which I don't say everybody wanted to kill him, but wanted to destabilize him. It was visual and explicit.
and I guess I kind of have to come back to my original question one of my original questions about how is it that the human race is so opposed to this idea of peace, of getting along?
I don't know if it's the human race or some powers.
So certain parts of the human race?
Absolutely. I think that there is inner conflicts in each society, and then there are dialectic, contradictory coalitions between opposing forces which don't want peace, want to destabilize peace. And they work together without even being coordinated. That's why I don't believe in a conspiracy.
In the conspiracy, right.
I mean,
which is ideology in a sense.
I don't think that the radical nationalist Palestinians who put the bombs were coordinating it with the Israeli extreme right wing.
Right.
But I think they serve the same purpose of destabilizing the Rabin government.
There's a shot of, I believe, of a young boy with a sign saying "Death to Rabin."
Yeah.
And I think, in connection to the whole documentary, fiction versus the reality, and so on. Again, with my own young children, I wonder about that kind of hatred, about that kind of ideological education, that the black and the white, if you will.
Yeah.
As a citizen, why didn't you write an essay about this? Why didn't you write a book about this?
I mean, I'm just a filmmaker. Anyway, it's a good beginning.
It's a great beginning. Amos, thank you for joining us
You're
today
welcome.
on the podcast. I appreciate it. Thank you for your film, and I wish you all the success in the world with it. And I hope the protesters stay home on November the 4th. Thank you for joining us today.